And perhaps the most harmful aspect of romanticism is the fact that it takes people out of reality. I mentioned earlier that we've all dramatically looked out of a window trying to impress an audience that wasn't there. We've all envisioned that we're the star in a music video or that we're playing the lead in a dramedy. But the question is, why? Hey everybody, it's Erik, your favorite YouTuber, back once again. And this week I'm going to be discussing Romanticism. To define Romanticism, it's an art form that began in the early 18th century, and according to Oxford, it's known for emphasizing subjectivity, inspiration, as well as the human experience. So I asked you guys to keep that in mind. However, I will be discussing Romanticism from the contextualization of modern day social media, meaning that the characteristics of traditional Romanticism have been altered. No longer a way of life, but a movement, a lifestyle that prompts willing participants to embrace everyday moments, to make the ordinary extraordinary, to make living itself art, to be the star in our very own movies. Credit to Alyssa Ponticello on that. Honestly, I understand why this movement gained such significant traction. The pandemic was a weird time. People were forced to turn their homes, their sanctuaries, into their workplaces. Human contact was prohibited, and there were so many situational factors that were constantly changing, all the while people were trying to rationalize what was going on. The days became more and more monotonous as time went on, and I believe that people realized how little control they had over their circumstances. And in an attempt to regain some of this control, to curate an environment or a bubble that makes sense, I believe that that's when people begin to romanticize their lives. Just as we talked about when we defined the word in the modern context, people were attempting to find happiness through the little things. This is why you bought that overpriced earth tone coffee mug, in order to enhance your coffee drinking experience. Or the reason why you look out the window dramatically when no one is on you, because the cameras are looking and you have to put on a good show. All that Netflix during lockdown finally catching up. But I do understand, because it's perfectly normal for us as humans to rationalize situations through the media that influences us, especially since we consume so much more now as compared to times past. However, I do believe that there are significant downsides to romanticizing your life. The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that it inadvertently teaches us to value having control a little too much. As I previously mentioned, the romanticizer tries to create the perfect environment by shutting themselves up into a bubble. This will only lead to feelings of dejection if things don't go exactly how they were envisioned. It encourages unnecessary consumerism. I mentioned the earth tone coffee mugs from earlier, but that is nowhere near the extent. Internet culture is something that is heavily researched by large corporations, and they would love to sell you something that you don't necessarily need. This is only made easier when they have the ability to create products that are in alignment with certain social media movements. And of course, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with purchasing things that you like online. But of course, it should go without stating that we should avoid overconsumption. And perhaps the most harmful aspect of romanticism is the fact that it takes people out of reality. I mentioned earlier that we've all dramatically looked out of a window trying to impress an audience that wasn't there. We've all envisioned that we're the star in a music video or that we're playing the lead in a dramedy. But the question is, why? We consume significantly more media than previous generations, and this was only accelerated by lockdown. It's hard to believe that there was a time where consumers of a show would have to wait a week until the next episode was released. With the advent of streaming and binge culture, our elevated exposure to media has caused it to have a significant influence over our thoughts, leading a lot of us to create an augmented reality where we are the main character. We're the star. So now we have to put on the show because the cameras are rolling and there's an audience to impress. I cannot harken enough on how harmful this main character concept is. It teaches us to place ourselves at the forefront while diminishing the issues as well as preferences of others. We've all been taught that the world doesn't revolve around us, but obviously with the rising popularity in concepts like this, it didn't resonate with everyone. I also wanted to touch on the romanticization of negative emotions such as sadness and depression. This society has tricked us into believing that sadness is a default. Being sad for the sake of is very normalized in contemporary society. Again, to reference the influence that media has over us, we try to replicate the things that we see and hear, music being very powerful as it pertains to this aspect of modern romanticism. We've all had the experience where we may have not been at our best emotionally, we play a sad song, and then it only enhances those feelings. We condition our brains to become accustomed to negative emotions, to the point where we don't even value positive emotions the same way anymore. But how does this help us? And I know I seem confused by this, but I've done it, you've done it, and it's just crazy to sit down and rationalize it. But I understand why we do it. We do it because we consume so much media that it causes us to characterize ourselves. And most media features largely negative concepts, so it's no surprise that we would place value in being perceived as poetically tragic or hauntingly beautiful, as opposed to just being perceived as positive in nature. Credit to Carmi on that. And just to preface, there's nothing wrong with being sad, but we shouldn't allow the media we consume to drag us deeper. We should pray, go to Him with our issues, and talk to people we love and trust. To round this out, I hope I didn't offend anyone. There's nothing wrong with doing things for yourself or enjoying the simple things in life. But in the midst of that, I feel like we should still be grounded in reality and cognizant of one another. A great way to achieve this is by cutting down on screen time, by getting outside, by reading, by talking to friends as well. I understand that life can be unpredictable. I can also understand the desire to want to control every single variable, but it's just not possible. Which is why we should acknowledge the fact that God is in control and trust in Him. But anyways, I've been chatting. I hope you guys derive some value from this. Thank you guys for watching, liking, and subscribing. God has a plan for your life. Thank you for allowing me to make my contribution.